and this time it should send us to the game over screen. You won, right? This is the X, and this now should say you lost. There we go, looks good. Welcome back to Arcade. I am Super Tommy, and this is part 6 of our multiplayer Tic-Tac-Toe game using Colyseus and Phaser. Now, in the last part, we handled determining the winner using an algorithm to know when there's a winning combination on the board. So now, given that information, and when we know whether you've won or your opponents won, or whether you lost, I suppose, we're going to go to a game over screen, show you a message, and then allow you to play again. And now it may be a different opponent or whatever. We're going to just basically disconnect from our server when the game over happens. And then when you want to play again, we're going to rejoin. Now Colyseus is going to use their matchmaking. Now ours is very simple, just to basically put you into any empty room that's waiting for an opponent. So let's start. So here is where we're going to know to switch scenes. Now if you recall from part 1, we set up this bootstrap scene, and we had mentioned, or I had mentioned, that we're going to use this to manage switching scenes. Now, in previous videos on the Arcade YouTube channel and in other tutorials you've probably seen elsewhere, you can just do scene.start or anywhere you want, that you can access the scene manager here within a scene, or the scene plugin, the scene manager plugin. But another way to do it is to keep all that scene switching in one place so you can see it all fairly easily. So we're going to do that in this video. So first, let's just make a new scene. We call it Game Over. So in our scenes folder, let's make a new file, gameover.ts. Now let's just import Phaser from Phaser as normal. Make a class here called Game Over. It's going to extend Phaser.scene. And then we need a constructor. Oops. Now super, give it a name or key, which is going to be Game Over. And let's see, we're going to have create. This, we're going to add some text to say either you won or you lost, depending on whether you're the winner or not. Now we're going to know that by whatever's passed in here. So let's just say it'll be something like this. It'll be an object, a data object, where the winner is true or false. So let's go if, let's see, text. So let's see data.winner. So if data.winner, right? So winner is true. We're going to say you won. Make capital. And then otherwise, else, you lost. And we're going to, let's put this in the middle of the screen roughly. So let's get the width and the height of our scene here. This .scale manager. We're going to width and height. Now this .add.text, just simple text. So width, half of width is like, so, you know, the middle, and then half height, so square in the middle. And then I'm going to make it this text that we defined up here, whether you won or you lost. And then let's make this kind of big. So font size, so just make it 48 pixels. And set origin, so that we do it in, so that the text itself is at origin center towards the top left. Okay, so that'll do that. Let's make sure this works. Go to main. Let's add the game over scene. Game over from scenes game over. Game over. All right. So now the trick is, how are we going to, in our bootstrap scene, go to this game over scene at the right time? Look at bootstrap scene again. So when we start our game, we pass in our server, right? We talked about this in part 1. What we can do here is pass a callback, and it can be the on game over callback. And when game over happens, the game scene, instead of switching scenes, is going to call this callback, which will let our bootstrap scene do the switching. So now we do that so that Bootstrap is going to keep running. That's what launch does if you recall in part 1. By launching it, we're running the game scene and the Bootstrap scene in parallel at the same time. So we don't want the Bootstrap scene to go away. We want to make sure this stays running. So let's say we pass in an on game over, right? And let's just say let's for simplicity's sake, let's just do that. So it's just a function that's going to get called, and when that happens, we want to know who the winner is, right? So just like before, if you call this winner boolean, now we've repeated this twice. So I'll just show you how to share types. We've done some of that already. Let's just do another one. In our types here, and in messages, I think we've seen basically sharing some of these types. But let's do another one. Let's call it scenes. And from there, we are going to do export interface. So this is going to be the game over scene data. And that's going to have a winner, which is a boolean. Now, while we're here, let's do one for game. So game scene data. And we currently know that there is the server, which is a server. That. Now we only want the type, so we can do import type instead of importing the entire implementation. TypeScript will know to just filter that out. We don't really need this. There's only for typing information. And then on game over is going to be a function that takes in an game over scene data and then returns void. So there we go. So these are the two data objects passed to each of the respective scenes. So let's go here to Bootstrap. And so let's use game over scene data. So again, tilde may be wrong for your setup. Just do that. And then we're going to do something here. So let's just say console.log data. And then in game, we're passing this through in game. Dismiss or collapse that. In create here, instead of this, now we know a better type, a shared type, a shared interface. That. Good. Now we also want to store, like we do server, on game over, and it can also be undefined, and it's going to be data game over scene data void. That's the type, and just come here. So this is what it may be for you. Then on game over, right, just to get it out of this data object here, we do this dot on game over. We set it to on game over. Okay, so now we have our callback in our game scene. We pass it through from the Bootstrap scene. So down here, when we know whether we won or we lost, we can do, let's do this instead. If not this dot on game over, so we don't have one. Somehow we've set this up wrong, just don't do anything because it's not defined, this callback. And then we can do is, if it is on game over, we're going to pass some data through, and that data is going to be winner. So we can cut all of this. We know that you're the winner if your player index, let's do triple equals here, is equal to the given index passed by this event. Right? So now we're going to call this on game over. We're going to get that data. Let's just quickly try it out. Boom. Winner true. Right? Good. And I guess this should say winner false. And it does. All right, looking good. So now let's go to Bootstrap. Instead of this, we're going to do this dot scene dot stop first of all. So we got to stop this game scene, and then this dot scene dot launch game over. Game over. Now we do need to pass data through, which is this, right? We need to know who the winner is, so we're just going to just pass it through. Let's see, who's the X? This guy the X now? Yes. Just get a win again, and this time it should send us to the game over screen. you won, right? This is the X, and this now should say you lost. There we go, looks good. Now we want to be able to restart, so let's go to our game over here. We'll just add a quick text that says this.add.text. Let's just put it by the title. Let's call this title. So title.x, and let's just say title.y plus 100, so just 100 below. And it's going to say press space to play again, let's just say. And so good. And then set origin, we also want this to be origin centered. So now we want to listen to a keyboard a space press on your keyboard. You can do other things, so you can add a button, but just for simplicity here, we're going to just use the keyboard. So this.input.keyboard, I'll make this perfect, keyboard.once. And then we're going to do key up, and then we want the space key. Let's bring this up. All right, so when key up space is pressed, we want to restart the game. Now, just like before in game, we don't want to do, like this.scene blob. We want to just keep everything in Bootstrap so we can see it all in one place, so it's easier to reason about. So we can, what we got to do is a similar thing. This on game over that we added here, for example, we want it on restart, and we want that here. So let's say on restart, and it's just going to be a function that takes no parameters and returns void. So we go back to Bootstrap. We want to put that into this data here. So what we can do, so what this means is we're going to create a new object, and we're going to merge or assign actually everything from data into this new object. So in other in JavaScript, or like without TypeScript magic and without this newer syntax, this would also be similar to doing this. Let's say, just say new data object.assign blank object, right? We're creating a blank object, right? Then we're doing data. We do this. These is basically the same. They're equivalent operations. What we're doing here with this shortcut, this spread operator, is we're doing effectively this. All right, we're making a new object, and we're taking whatever's in data, put into that new object, and then we're also going to add on restart. And what this is going to do is this.scene.stop, game over, and then this.scene, this.scene.start game. Right, so basically that. Now we do need to disconnect from our server, if you recall. So we also want to do, when we do game over, this.server dot, we want to leave. We don't have a leave yet, so let's actually go make it. Go to server. We have a join. Let's add a leave. So this dot room dot leave. Now one thing more while we're here, because this will leave, but there is a bug if we don't do one more thing. So when we listen to these events, right, we do events.on, events.on, events.on. There's no corresponding off that we're calling anywhere. Now, you could add another way to take these, to turn off these events or to unsubscribe from these events, but currently we don't need to. You could do a thing like this, just for as an example, return out a function that what it does is, instead of on, it does off with the exact same inputs. So this will automatically unsubscribe from this event. So what you do is on player one, let's say, it returns a function, you store that function somewhere, and when you're ready to stop listening, you just call it. But we're not gonna go through that in more detail here, since we don't need to. What we can do instead is whenever you leave the game, you can do this.events.remove all listeners, because we know you don't need to know about any of this anymore. You've left the game. So let's go back to Bootstrap. server.leave. So we're going to leave, stop the game scene, go to the game over scene. And when we restart, we're going to stop the game over scene and then go to the game scene. But you see here, it's actually this much more complicated thing. So this is looking really crazy. So let's refactor this a little bit to simplify. So let's say we're going to have a handle game over, and we're going to do this. So this is basically making a property called handle game over and passing it an anonymous arrow function here. Now we're doing this so that we can use this as the instance of this scene. So another way that we could do this is this, right? And now this will be correct. And then on here, let's just take this. And then on here, right, okay, this is all good. So then on here we would do this dot handle game over dot bind this, right? So that's what we would need to do if we did it this way. Now if we did it the way that I had just shown, this as a property, we can just do this. And this will still be the correct value. So give it a try if you don't believe me. I'm going to leave it like this since it looks a little bit nicer than doing dot on bind. And then here, handle restart. And same idea, we're going to do a property and then set that property to an arrow function so that we have proper this in scope. And which is going to be this here. Okay, we still need to fix this game thing. Then this is going to be this dot handle restart. Okay, good. Oops. Okay, right? So that's good. So now let's come down here, private, create new game. We just call it that. And that's going to do this. Create new game. So on create, this dot create new game as normal, just like before. And then here, instead of doing this, we're going to do this dot create new game. Boom. So this is much easier to read, and it's not like sort of referencing itself, let's say. Let's just review this. So when we create a new game, on game over, we're going to call this dot handle game over, which is over here. And when game over happens, we also pass in an on restart. And this on restart is going to happen when we press our space key. And it's going to call this, which will stop the game over scene, and then create a new game, which calls this just like we do when we initially get to create, so a new game is started. All right, let's see how this works. Okay, so here's that. Oh, now winner boolean. So what we want here is an I game over scene data. Let's just change this typing. The tilde will work in my specific project, but for yours, this may be better. Okay, so we have data. So if data.onRestart, data.onRestart. Now we're going to call it only if it is given. If for some reason it's not given, we're not going to do anything. So let's try it. X, O, let's just try this one. X, O, X. Now you won, press space to play again. You lost, press space to play again. Now let's look at this. Everyone should have left, right? No more rooms. That's good. Come here, press space. We are one person. We should be waiting for someone, right? Let's check. One client, two max. We do this guy, press space. Now it should be two clients. Yep, it's good. Now we play X. It should be the same room. All right. So we have that. Now, it would be nice to be able to know when you're waiting for someone to play with, right? So let's just do that real fast here. We did the restart, right? This whole thing is now one whole game that can play forever, roughly. If you have this online, two people get together randomly, play Tic-Tac-Toe. Someone wins, someone loses, and they can play again against different opponents, most likely, if you have a lot of players on your server. Winner, and then there is an on restart, right? Let's fix this actually. So this type error, because that on restart is going to just go to scenes. is not always going to be there. Let's go back to game, and there we're good. Okay. So we want to show a little message here. So right when we create the board, so let's say if this dot server, let's see, this dot, let's see, how should we do this? We need to know, let's add another value to our schema on the Colyseus side. So Tic-Tac-Toe, let's go to our Tic-Tac-Toe state. We're going to do another thing here. We're going to, let's just call this game state. It's going to be an enum, so we can make it a number. It's going to be a new thing. Let's go to this Tic-Tac-Toe state type file. Export enum game state. And what we're going to have is, let's see, waiting for players, playing, and then let's just say this is finished. Game state, and it'll be of type game state. Come over here, game state, let's do game state dot, didn't know to import, game state, waiting. So it always starts as waiting for players. Okay, good. Now, in our Tic-Tac-Toe over here, so on create, make a state, that's great. And then on join, so each time someone joins, we can do a check here. So if this dot clients dot length, let's just say greater than equals to 2, it should never be more than 2 since we set max clients to 2. If this is true, we do this dot state dot game state equals to game state dot playing. Now we have 2 people, the game is ready. So that we change that state. Now, just like before, we're going to have to listen in our server, basically just like this, case game state. And then this dot events dot emit. I just say this is game state changed, and then value and break. Here on game state changed. Callback. Let's call this state. We have type game state. Void context. And then this dot events dot on game state changed. Do the callback and the context. Let's come up to the imports here. Right. Let's do this. Okay. See, there's an error here. Right, our Tic-Tac-Toe state, or Tic-Tac-Toe rather, because our server does not have this tilde set up. Okay, and we don't need this anymore. Let's delete that. Let our server restart. Looking good. Okay. Okay, we can rejoin. Great. Okay, all in the same room. Okay. Okay, so now in game, what we can do, let's see, this dot server dot game state. Let's go to our server class. We need to know whether we're waiting for players or not. So let's see what's the best way to do that. So let's just do a thing here called get game state. And it's going to be return this dot room dot state dot game state. Now, if not room for some reason, we're just going to say we're always waiting for a player. Right. So if you call this before the room, before we've connected, then you're definitely waiting for player. Okay. Let's go out to game here. If this dot server dot game state equals game state dot waiting for a player. We're going to add a text here, so let's just say this dot add dot text. Let's get the width out here. So this dot scale dot width times half, so the center. And then I just say about 50 pixels down. And waiting for opponent dot dot dot. And set origin half. We're going to want to remove this when the state changes. So this dot server dot on game state changed. This dot handle game state changed. This. So we'll have to store this into a class property. So let's do that right now. Just do it right here. Private game state text, let's say, and it's going to be potentially undefined. Phaser.gameObjects.text. This dot game state text. Okay, handle game state changed. Private state game state. This will get called whenever the game state changes on the server, like we did in the on join. When there's 2 people, it's time to play. So when that happens, so if state is equal to GameState.playing and this dot GameState text. So that means that is not undefined. This dot GameState text dot destroy. Remove that. This is waiting for opponent right here. And then this dot GameState text undefined. All right. Let's just do okay, now they both connected, so it's harder to see. Just close that. Refresh that. Now we're not handling drops or anything, obviously you saw. So waiting for opponent. Good. Come here. We say we're going to join this game, and the game is now ready. Now we can play. Now, what last thing here before this video is over, just to show you that we can definitely play, is to not allow moves when it's not game state playing. So in our cell here, we do this make selection on the server. We can guard it in here, like this make selection. So we do a guard here already. But if this dot room dot game state is not equal to game state dot playing, we're going to return. And that's it, just return. So it won't do anything. You can't make a move if the game is not playing. Now this is only a client side block, right? So now it doesn't let you put an X down. We can also block it on the server for a more robust block. So this player selection command, could do it here. Yeah, why not? I think that's fine. So on player selection command, so if this dot room dot state dot game state not equal to game state dot playing, just don't do anything. Return. We're not gonna put a piece down. We're not gonna check for winner. Nothing. And just make sure that's good. That's good. Okay. So now we've guarded against people starting the game before 2 people have joined. I think now there are 2 different games. Let's see. Oh no, one of them is not connected since the server restarted. Let's just do that. Okay, this guy restarted. For testing, let's just delete that. Okay, waiting. Right, so we're waiting. This is just old data. Refresh. Now we joined. Now good. Good. All right, so the game still works. Let's just see if we can have. Let's see if we can have circle win this time. And circle. All right, circle won. Now that was very fast. So let's see, 29 minutes. Let's do one more thing here real fast. In game, we'll just add a quick delay so that we can actually see something has happened before we do on game over. Let's put this whole thing in a delayed call. So this .time.delayed call, let's just say 1 second. And then this whole thing. this is now first player. X. Let's give it to circle again this time. Wait. There we go. You won. Press space to play again. You lost. Press space to play again. Good. Waiting for opponent. And now we've joined. So this guy's X now. There we go. All right. So that's basically Tic-Tac-Toe, multiplayer Tic-Tac-Toe using Colyseus and Phaser. So we wrapped it up here. We added the game over scene, and we added restarting the game. What did we do? Oh, adding the hat, waiting for opponents text. So you can take some of this and add more to it. Make this Tic-Tac-Toe game your own. We may do one more video here that is optional, but we're going to upgrade this project from Colyseus 0.13 to Colyseus 0.14. Now, if you enjoyed this video, do hit like and hit subscribe for more videos on making multiplayer games with Colyseus and Phaser.